Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with my Adeptus Mechanicus guide for Warhammer 40K Mechanicus 2, going over the things you should know if you're playing them. This video and this playthrough has been done on the Grim Darkness difficulty, the default Grim Darkness difficulty, though you can always change things around, and honestly, I would probably recommend changing some of these things around. A couple of things I would like to mention here is like Necron starting the minion plus 10 can be a bit annoying because it means that they can use all of their powerful abilities that require a high level of the minion. And then enemy presence plus 25% for dynamic missions can end up being pretty ridiculous. I'll show you why, because there are set missions, critical path missions, like main story missions, and then there's dynamic missions, things like tomb complexes, assault, forge city defenses, forge temple defenses, all that kind of stuff, and you will end up having to fight a ridiculous number of enemies. But anyway, to talk about the leaders, you can only have one per battle, one tech priest, if you will, per battle. That is a marked difference compared to the first game where you could have multiple tech priests, and it could be quite ridiculous and quite fun to use multiple tech priests, especially later on in a campaign. But here you can only have one leader for both Adeptus Mechanicus and Necrons, with the exception of some very specific missions where you get basically your faction leader, so Faustinius for the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Varguard for the Necrons. Now, the way leaders work is you have these augmentation points for the Adeptus Mechanicus, and you can assign them and then reassign them at leisure between missions. And these give you different benefits. One of the things you probably do want to use early on is to get the middle path skill tree, and that's because this will increase your skirmish deployment capacity of units, as well as give you all kinds of different benefits for your army. Then you kind of want to focus on their weapons or their buff skills that they do have. So they either upgrade their weapons or they give you certain skills that help you in combat. You're looking at buffs, you're looking at debuffs. So when we look at Scaevola, for instance, she's not really a great starting tech priest early on. She moves slow, she's big, she's a big target, and the thing is, if you lose your army leader, you lose that mission, and that kind of creates problems in terms of how you want to approach building up. You want to keep them alive, you want to keep them protected, so ranged heroes, basically, ranged leaders, or leaders with range capabilities or support capabilities are going to end up more useful than ones with a lot of melee capability, and that's also something that's going to dictate the way you level them up as well. With Scaevola, she can get, you can get different weapons or different skills as you progress through the campaign, through missions, critical path missions. For instance, she starts with the macro stubber, then you can upgrade that to a different kind of pistol that puts Lumigen on a target. So that can be useful. The main benefit, though, for her is to get the eradication ray. Once you get that, she will be able to do a significant amount of damage to enemies. And really, what she is useful in terms of buffing your army is with Empowered. So Empowered increases weapon damage for a unit. It does cost a cognition point, which you gain through various actions in a battle, like various units in your army will give you cognition points through different actions. And what's really nice about this is that it can cause explosions in enemy ranks. So if you send a melee unit or you blow up or you kill a unit and it's surrounded by other units, you can do quite a bit of damage. Then she has the ability of debuffing an enemy, either doing some damage from range, which is useful when trying to remove Necrons from the battlefield. Next up, we have Rho. Like, there's a lot of things to be discussed with regards to skills, but personally, yeah, as I said, like, the general trend is try and get that skirmish deployment capacity, because having more units is always going to be useful. And then range weaponry and buff abilities or debuff abilities. Then we have Rho. So Rho is kind of the most useless one. He buffs servitors with the middle skill tree, and while obviously he increases skirmish deployment rather easily, all things considered. Like, you just get one skill for movement for servitors, and then you unlock that. But the thing about him is that he's a leader that's focused on melee capability. Like, he has data acquire. For every data acquire, you buff a specific skill, like Song of the Implacable, which is a charge ability. So he's trying to be a really good melee lord, but given the number of enemies that you might be dealing with in a battle, melee leaders kind of end up being less than useful. You can at least get a heal ability with him for your units, but yeah, Rho is kind of the one that I just use the least. Like, he can provoke enemies, he can do quite well in melee, but when you're fighting a significant number of forces and healing yourself is not really an option, then that's going to be something of a problem when you're playing Rho. Next up, we have Khepra. Khepra is all about army leading, Skitarii, as well as giving you some different benefits. She can create connection between this unit and an allied unit, which can give you benefits in terms of the damage that they're capable of dealing. She can use her server skull to give you cognition points when you kill an enemy. She can give you priority target, which makes enemies take more damage, and you can also do it in an area if you upgrade that. The main benefit, though, of Khepra is that she has the largest skirmish deployment capability of all leaders, and on top of that, she also gets a special Skitarii Marshal, which is a pretty solid melee unit that does also give you a good amount of cognition points with one of the skills they do have. She also has kind of a weak pistol, but then you can upgrade them with upgrade that with a Radium Serpenta. Irradiated is useful because you put Irradiated on an enemy Necron, you kill it, and then when they want to revive, the radiation will just kill them outright before they revive, and that's actually something you're going to want to do quite often against enemies. Like, radiation is generally speaking a useful skill. She can also she does start with a healing ability, so she can keep her army more alive, and that healing ability can also be buffed to, you know, give more damage, restore more HP, and remove negative effects. But yeah, she's got the largest army, not necessarily the best army in a lot of ways, but all the same, she is useful in terms of getting a lot of troops in a combat situation. Then we have Videx. So Videx has really 3 components to him. In terms of the army situation, he can get 2 special Electro Priests to his own army. That's pretty nice, and he can also buff them. Electro Priests are very useful to have in a battle situation because they are far more durable than one might think. Like, they have this ability called Fanatical Devotion, which makes it so that when they basically take fatal damage. They'll just stand on the field, for an extra turn. In fact, they can survive that fatal damage and still be used throughout the rest of the battle. But the more useful things with Videx, he can gain defended, so you can use this ability on a unit and give him and that unit defended, so they're harder to kill. And you can also get Fanatical Devotion for him, though keep in mind, with Fanatical Devotion, it's a bit of a question mark. It's a bit of a question mark how useful it is with Videx, because when you have Fanatical Devotion, the problem you might encounter is that he'll just die next up. That's the thing, like, Fanatical Devotion can keep a unit alive. But you do need to kill an enemy unit to keep that unit alive. He does get Divination, which means that next time he would take damage, he can avoid it, and he can put Divination on an army. Like, you also have the ability of putting Immobilized on a target, but I would generally go with the Divination skill, especially as you unlock Galvanic Discharge. So this can do a significant amount of damage. It does cost 3 cognition points, but you are able to eliminate a lot of different targets with this. Or you can choose to go with getting Divination at the beginning of each skirmish. And on top of that, he can also get, he does have the Lance weapon, which just does a fair amount of damage, and you can buff it up. You put Impeded, you inflict Exposed, you gain a penetrating area, so you can kill multiple units with this. His melee capability is nothing to really write home about, but that's what makes Videx so solid, is that he does have two ways of doing significant range damage. He can take a significant amount of damage as well, and the fact that he gets those Electro Priests gives you your army more durability than others. Then we have Captrix. Captrix is your assassin, basically, and the things she can do to an army just plainly freaking ridiculous. So she doesn't have as many units as Khepra, but she can give Sicarian units assassination. So if they're striking from behind the target, they'll do more damage. Her basic weapon, the blaster, can be very useful early on against early game units. She can get obscured, so she's got that survivability. She can get dodge, all that kind of stuff. She does have a decent amount of melee capability, but most importantly, I would say with her, like, she can also get heal if you want it. So she's got healing, she's got some pistol damage, she's got that combination of range damage and melee damage. But the most important thing about her, and this is kind of where it's ridiculous that you have even a choice, is you have Invocation of Machine Vengeance. So what this allows you to do with Captrix, and this is why I think, like, either her or Videx are the best army leaders, really. She and her units can use Invocation of Machine Vengeance to move to a cell. So beyond your regular movement, you can either close the gap or get out of harm's way with this. And you can also buff this. So for instance, if I give Invocation of Machine Vengeance, extra range, that's just gonna start getting quite ridiculous. And she also gains Strengthened at the start of each skirmish, and further you can buff it. But the important thing here, you can really use this ability with your entire army, as long as you have cognition points, to really move along the battlefield in a ridiculous way. And there are a good number of missions where you have an infinite number of enemies, and your objective is to get your hero, your army leader, or some unit to a specific location. So this is where Invocation of Machine Vengeance really ends up being useful. And again, closing the gap or creating distance between you and the enemy, just very, very important. Then we have all kinds of units, but it's probably worth talking about this in the Shrine of Knowledge. Like, by default, you have your Skitarii Rangers. They have a decent amount of range damage. They can't move after shooting, but if you attack an enemy at higher than 5 range or more, at 5 range or more, you generate cognition points. You do have your Vanguard, who have Analyze, which inflicts exposed on enemies, so they'll take more damage, and generate 1 cognition points. And then you have the Carbine, which does less damage, which may do, which has less range, than the Rangers, but it does put irradiated on a target, and they're immune to radiation. And then you have your Servitors. Those are your basic unit. Servitors, they're just your meat wall. Their main value proposition is to throw them into a fight and have them take damage so you can generate cognition points. Though, to be honest, I rarely use Servitors unless I literally have nothing else to recruit. And you'll find yourself in a situation in a campaign very quickly where you will not really want to use them. This brings me to the Shrine of Knowledge. But before we talk about the different upgrades over here, it is important to talk about how you gain points here. So missions will provide you Archaeotech fragments, and this is used to unlock technologies, but you also have tier requirements for different technologies. And in order to unlock higher tiers, you need Forge Temples for cities. This is basically the main limiting factor on technology. It's not even the fragments necessarily that are as much of a problem. It's kind of a shame because Necrons, when we're talking about unlocking different units, those units are unlocked on the army leaders themselves, whereas with the Mechanicus, in order to unlock higher tier units, you need more Forge Temples for cities, and that just means you need to wait for missions to happen. Like, you fight a critical path mission, and then you will get the opportunity of constructing another Forge Temple for city, and you do want to defend them because that gives you a requisition for the recruitment of units. But let's talk about technology. You can buff in a manufactorum. You can buff servitors quite a bit, but as I said, most of the time I just don't really care too much about servitors. That's because you're usually going to be vastly outnumbered, and you do have a skirmish limit, which, by the way, the AI doesn't have in certain missions. That's kind of one of the flaws of the game. But in the manufactorum, the more important things is you can get destroyers and you can get Castellan robots. These guys can be freaking ridiculous due to the damage they're able to do. So you have 2 versions of each. So your default one has, your destroyer default one has an AoE ability that can put impeded and a blaster that can do some damage, not necessarily the most. But then you have the upgraded version, which has the Plasma Culverin, and this thing is insane. The reason it's insane, like, it also has a flamethrower. A flamethrower puts burning in an area, and that can damage a significant portion of the enemy army. It won't do a lot of damage, but that burning effect will kill Necrons. You have to kill them, then you have to deal with the remains. It will destroy those remains. But the thing about the Plasma Culverin, it does prevent you from using it an additional turn, but if you have a big enemy army, then using this damn thing will just devastate. It will just devastate. I mean, it ignores defense. Or you have the regular one, less damage, but it doesn't incur that cooldown. Robots. So robots, two versions. You have a melee version. It has a flamethrower. It's fairly durable. It will explode on death. Both of them will. And then you have a fist, which can do armor crush on an enemy target and a pretty decent amount of damage, especially if you're stuck in and you're not moving. There are quite a few abilities where you will do more damage if you haven't moved that turn yet. Keep in mind, only a handful of units can actually use their weapons and then move after that. Then we have the range version. So you have Heavy Phosphor Blaster and Castellan Phosphor Blaster. Both of them inflict Lumigen on a target. One of them can be used in melee, so the Castellan Phosphor Blaster can be used even if you're engaged in melee, but the other one requires you to not be engaged in melee to use. But you do have basically 2 usage on each of them, so you have 4 ranged attacks on the Castellan robot. And in the Shrine of Knowledge, you unlock those variants, you unlock different abilities, different upgrades for them available. Like, yeah, buffing the robots can be ridiculous. They occupy a lot of space on a battlefield, but they will certainly be worth their weight in the vast majority of situations. Not all of them. If you're on a crowded battlefield, maybe not so much. Then we have the Cohort. So here is probably where you're going to get a lot of the early game upgrades, and you want to. So first off, you can increase the rank of different units. And this is randomized when you go into a mission or you're selecting the army for a mission. But what you're really looking to get over here is Sicarian Ruststalkers and Infiltrators. Ruststalkers are generally more useful of the two. You can get Marshals, you can get Ranger Alphas, you can get Sterilizors. Let's talk about those different units in the cohort. So, Alphas are both Ranger Alphas and Vanguard Alphas have a melee, a weapon, and a pistol ability. The Ranger Alpha is generally more useful because they have that blast pistol, which can do damage in an AoE. They both have Analyze. You do have a pistol for Vanguard Alphas that does radiation. These guys are there to get stuck in with the enemy. So sometimes, mostly really, they're just there to be thrown into the meat grinder and kind of die and distract the enemy. Melee, you're looking at flayed ones. The Marshal, on the flip side, he has the Control Edict, which can give you a significant amount of cognition points, especially if you're using it in the middle of an enemy army. You do have a radiation pistol, and you do have a stave. Keep in mind something, though. You can also get arc mauls and arc pistols sometimes with them, and you do have different upgrades over here, basically higher ranks, arc rifle, for instance, for Skitarii Rangers, as an example, like different weapons that you unlock, or the chance of different weapons to be unlocked. So, for instance, if you're looking at the Skitarii Ranger with an arc rifle, it's just a better weapon, it will do more damage. If we're looking at Vanguard with a plasma weapon, well, this can do a fair amount of damage in an AoE, and you can go in, do that AoE damage, and get them out to avoid taking that damage. But really, I want to talk about the Sicarian Ruststalkers and Infiltrators, also the Princeps, and then the Sterilizors, Electropriest, all that. When we look at Sicarians, Infiltrators have a pistol and a melee weapon, and they can also be upgraded to get a grenade that can do damage in AoE. They have dodge, they have agile, so they can't be subject to attacks of opportunity, so you can go in melee and, you know, go right into the melee, the middle of the enemy line, and or close enough to throw a grenade. The Princeps, he's got a Service Call, which gives data whisper, which means you get connection points when you kill enemies. But yeah, he's just basically the better version of it. And you'll always have one. Then we have Rustalkers. These guys are ridiculously good. So you can either have a cleave ability with them, or you can do a lot of damage against a single target. And it ignores armor, and you can move after using this ability. So you can go in, do damage, move out. If the AI was capable of using these guys properly, they would be a lot more dangerous. And then we have the Princeps. Like, he's basically got only one ability, but that's the thing. It's as good as the single target. It's even better than the single, or as good as the single target ability of regular ones, but it's always a cleave. So that makes these guys far more dangerous. So there are limits to obviously how many you can have in a battle. Like, you can basically get 2 only. Then we have Electro Priests. One may wonder how useful Electro Priests are. Well, the melee version has a stave, which puts defense down. And what's kind of useful with respect to these guys, though I'm not sure if it's gonna say it, is that when an enemy unit moves in melee range of these guys, they'll hit them with a stave first off, so they'll do some damage, they can kill units. Then there's an upgrade you can get which removes your defense. So by default, they have defense. They don't have armor, they have defense, but basically they have a decent amount of survivability. And the thing about this is that when this unit is about to die, so, you know, the enemy might do a massive freaking attack against them, and they can survive that. Of course, you do need to be careful about it. You'll probably lose them very, very quickly after that, but it just gives you that opportunity to control the battlefield. The ranged Electro Priests, they have still Fanatical Devotion, they still have the Blast ability, but the important thing is they have an Electrostatic Gauntlet ability, which can do double damage, so you can potentially kill an enemy unit if it's low HP, like just remove their corpse as well. Or you have Arc Lightning, basically, Chain Lightning, more or less. Like, it can bounce several times, can be used in melee because it's got that pistol trait. And this makes the range version just like, oh, I'm going to throw this guy into the middle of the enemy army and just throw Chain Lightning at them. And if you try and kill him, he'll survive longer than one might think. Then we have our Sterylizors. These are flying flamethrower units. So what they do, they can get the Purgation Protocol in like a line, but that's an upgrade. By default, they have a pretty weak melee attack, though they can dodge, and they're flying. So you can send them across the battlefield, put a significant amount of fire damage on the ground, and just get out of there as well. And so that is always going to be very useful because of the debuffs that enemies will take. Situational, not so useful when you're dealing with a limited number of enemies, but very useful when you're dealing with hordes of foes. And by the way, that's definitely something you're going to be tackling. Now, Requisition is what you use to recruit troops. So this is gained through missions, this is gained from Forge Temples. You can also upgrade Forge Temples. So when you construct a Forge Temple, it's going to be low level, it's going to have limited production, but once you upgrade them, they are going to be giving you a lot more money. Like, for instance, over here I'm gaining 122 Requisition and I have 895. As for missions themselves, so you have story missions right here, where you have a set number of enemies to deal with, but then you have dynamic missions and you have assignments. So assignments is where you basically just send a leader to do something for a turn or two, or even free, and get some benefit. So it can be augmentation points, it can be building a forge city, forge temple, it can be getting archeotech, tech, all that kind of stuff. In fact, I think I'm possibly going to send one of my leaders over there. One of the values of assignments is that it allows you to level up army leaders that you just don't want to use. Keep in mind, when you're going into a mission with an army leader, they're not going to be available for a turn. So bear in mind when you're talking about different missions. But in terms of the missions themselves, you have a vigilance meter. Basically, if this fills up, the enemy is going to get more. Is going to get the reinforcement spawning. What's annoying on Grim Darkness is that by default it's like 2-starring vigilance. So you're supposed to have a bunch of different choices in quite a few missions, either in the missions or with the stratagems that you use. So you have these stratagems that do increase vigilance, but a lot of the time that decision is kind of made for you, basically, with the default settings of Grim Darkness. So I probably just reduce it just to give you more choices there. But since I'm maxed out, I'm just going to go with everything. Now, the units that you get here, you'll always have Rangers, you'll always have Vanguards, you'll always have Servitors. Everything else is pretty much, I think, randomized. Units do have a requisition cost to them, and there's a lot of different factors like unit ranks dependent on upgrades, a bunch of different randomization. Usually speaking, Rangers and Vanguards, you kind of want to use them. Rotstalker is really good in terms of their melee capability and their ability to escape combat, and hey, who doesn't like a destroyer? But here's where it gets pretty ridiculous when you're playing the Mechanicus. Or just in general with these quote-unquote dynamic missions in the game. And you'll be finding quite a few of these, because they'll keep coming up over and over and over again. Now, there's defense missions and tomb complex missions and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is just insane. Plain and simple. Like, this is a ridiculous level of enemy forces to deal with. But even then, it's not even the numbers that makes this so horrifying to deal with. It's something else entirely. And that's the flying units that you might be dealing with. So beyond the fact that you're vastly outnumbered in both total numbers and in both total numbers of forces and in terms of the deployment, what's even more ridiculous is you have these Praetorians, these Triarchs, 2 versions. I'm not sure if I have the second version. Like most units, you can deal with, because due to the sheer number of enemies, they'll actually, the decision making they'll have will not strictly be the best. But then we have the jump troops, or the Sterylizor, as if you're playing Necrons and you're fighting against Mechanicus. So the Sterilizors, those will be an annoying factor to deal with, but it's really the jump troops that are annoying. Because what they do what these guys will do is they'll jump into the middle of a grouping of forces. So, for instance, like that. And, you know, he could have jumped there and done more damage. And beyond that, they can also move and do different attacks. So, for instance, the Praetorians are actually the easier unit to deal with, just because they don't have, just because they only have one attack. But Vanguard, the Praetorian, they have that spear. They only have one spear attack. Actually, both of them are called Praetorian, sorry. But basically, one of them has a spear. The other one has a pistol and a melee weapon with armor crush on it. So they can jump into the middle of your, say, ranged units, do 4 damage to them, and you can have, like, a ridiculous amount of these guys in a battle. So, for instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've seen 6. I think I've seen 7. And this is randomized. This is the part that really is irritating. So you have this amount of units in a single battle, and you're like, oh, we will have these guys that all of them basically on the same turn can jump into the middle of your force, completely decimate it, and you have no counter. With everything else, you can deal with it because pathfinding enemy units will get in their way. So a lot of the times, it will take a while for units to engage, like, you know, all these swarms, all these flayed ones. They're going to take their sweet time. So you can control the battlefield, but you can't control the battlefield against this ridiculous nonsense. So that's something you should be aware of. The way you deal with this is you go in, if you want to deal with this and have less of an annoying time, because this will happen in defense missions, this will happen into complex assault missions. What you can do is just, if you're thinking, yeah, I want to play on the higher difficulty, just reduce this, you know, reduce this, because it is just a ridiculous capability. Maybe even go to 25% less. I'm not, like, it would have been nicer if you had, like, there are some missions which have multiple skirmishes, or it would have been nicer if enemy units would just show up, not all at once, but show up in waves, which, by the way, they can do in a lot of regular missions, and a lot of story missions. But no, just throw a horde of enemies against the player, and good luck with that. Kind of frustrating. But yeah, that's what you gotta deal with. Obviously, there's things to talk about, like, oh, how to use each individual tech priest in the best possible way, but that's just a general purpose guide. A couple of things with difficulty, by the way. You may want to reduce the vigilance level. You may want to increase your starting requisition, all that. I think the main thing that does annoy me is how long it can take to get these tiers. I think it would be a more interesting dynamic if you could get forge, if you could get higher tiers faster, but then you had to decide, okay, how do I want to upgrade the army? Because the way things work right now, a lot of the time you're just kind of going to sit on a lot of these archaeotech fragments until you can get forged temples. But anyway, that's all I had to say. Costin signing out.